Welcome back to Handwriting and Story Mapping with Mrs. Owens. So, as you know, last time we left off with our revision of my S, T, and O. Okay? We went back and we looked at the bare bones of my story and we said to ourselves, you know what? I want to change my thinking around. So I changed my thinking around and I wrote more sentences, adding more detail, putting more feeling into my writing, and just making it more juicy for the reader. Okay? So now that we've done that with the S, T, and O of my story, now I'm ready to do that with the R and the Y of my story. Okay? So before I start my revision of my R and Y, I'm going to go back to my O. And I'm going to reread that just to refresh myself, okay, as I move on. Okay. Just as the event was beginning, I noticed that one of my gloves was missing. It looks like one of my gloves are missing, I said, okay? I started to feel nervous again, okay? So friends, before I begin my R, of course, I need to find a transitional, that's the word I'm looking for, a transitional word or phrase to connect my oops, there's a problem, to my attempts to resolve, okay? So let me just take a moment and try to think. Okay. I started feeling nervous again. Okay. All right. I got it, friends. I got it. Here we go. Look under the table, I said to my assistant, Azaria. Okay. So this is, of course, my first draft. And so I told my assistant, Azaria, remember my son and my daughter were my two assistants. So I said to my daughter, look under the table, okay? And so I wanna change that around a little bit, okay? I wanna change that around a little bit. So I'm gonna change that by, first of all, using the transitional phrase in that moment, okay? So in that moment, my assistant, Azaria, said it might be under the table or it might have fallen under the table. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that first, okay? Okay. Here we go. So I'm going to save space, I'm just going to start from up here because this is just my rough draft anyways, right? So with your rough draft, you're going to have a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, maybe misspelled words, punctuation that you forgot to put in. It's okay because this is just our rough draft. We're simply doing our revision, okay? So in that moment, my assistant, Azaria, said it might have fell under the table. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I put that in quotations because when someone's speaking, you want to put those dialogue tags or quotations, right? It might have fell under the table. She said. Okay. So now, it might have fell under the table, she said. So now I'm going to write my response to her. You're right. I said, look under the table to see if it is there, please. amount of detail that I've added into my story, okay? Instead of just having look under the table, I said to my assistant Azaria, I changed it around. I put in an important transitional phrase. In that moment, okay, my assistant Azaria said it might have fell under the table. You're right, I said. Look under the table to see if it is there, please, okay? So, now, I'm thinking that, I'm wondering if I should add some more detail into the R of my story, okay? Well, let me think about the R of my story is my attempts to resolve the problem, right? So, I asked my daughter to look under the table to see if she found the glove, okay? The missing glove. So now, let's jump down to the Y and see. Azaria gave me the missing glove, and I continued showing how to dye the Easter eggs, okay? All right. So, friends, I noticed I have a mistake here in my word or in my spelling. Remember, Miss Owen said that when we write, many times we're writing so fast we're not paying attention and we misspell words. So I just found a misspelled word. Okay, so Azaria gave me the missing glove and I continued showing how to dye the Easter egg. All right, so friends, I think that my R is pretty good. I think it's ready for a transitional phrase to jump into the Y, okay? Because I certainly want to add more detail here. So, I'm thinking that a transitional phrase that will work really well for my Y of my story would be sure enough, okay? Because sure enough, the glove was under the table, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Sure enough, my assistant was right. Okay? Now, I wrote Azaria gave me the missing glove and I continued showing how to dye the Easter eggs. That's not bad at all, friends, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the wording around a little bit because that's what we do when we revise, right? We change things around. So instead of the way that I have it written, what I'm going to write is she passed me the missing glove and I continued to show all the scholars at Ivy Hill Prep how to dye their Easter eggs. Okay, so friends, I think that that's a lot more detail than what I initially had when I first wrote my story, the why of my story, right? So now, friends, I think that's about it. I think the only thing that I could add here is just a sentence just to close it up, right? A sentence for closure, okay? Because after all, this is, yes, there's a solution, right? And we just want to put that extra emphasis on it. So, I'm going to say, we made beautiful eggs and it was so much fun. All right, friends, the end, okay? So that is the revised R and Y of my story. I think it sounds so much better. Okay? As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read my story from the very beginning. I'm going to start at the S and I'm going to go all the way down and through the Y. Okay. On the Friday before Easter, my school had an Easter egg dyeing celebration. This was my first time hosting a Friday celebration. I was super nervous. Luckily, my daughter and son were there to assist me, and many of my students and other teachers. That made me feel so much better. Just as the event was beginning, I noticed that one of my gloves was missing. It looks like one of my gloves are missing, I said. I started to feel nervous again. In that moment, my assistant Azaria said, "It might have fell under the table." "You're right," I said. "Look under the table to see if it is there, please." Sure enough, my assistant was right. She passed me the missing glove, and I continued to show all the scholars at Ivy Hill Prep how to dye their Easter eggs. We made beautiful eggs, and it was so much fun. So, scholars, what do you think? Do you think that this is a well-revised piece of writing? Yes, I agree. Not just because it's my own, but because we went through all of the steps. We changed our thinking. We added more sentences with more detail. We added feeling words. We added transitional words and phrases to connect all the parts of our story. And because of that, I think that this is a well-revised piece of writing. So friends, yesterday, you all revised your ST and O of the story that you wrote about a time when you hurt yourself. So tonight for homework, you are going to go back to that same story. You are going to revise the R and the Y of that story, okay? Friends, I can't wait to see your work. See you soon.